Okay, so this is also making more sense to me how your next endeavor, local, came to be. So talk about that. It was so great when you're here and sitting in our kitchen and talking about the Socratic method and engagement of humans on a very real level. Now I understand better where this is, where the germination of the idea came from. So for the audience, go ahead and talk about local.
Yeah, so as I was traveling the country for sackcloth and doing blanket drops, that's why I was in Green Bay prior to meeting with you, as I was doing a blanket drop at the homeless shelter there. And so I do them still every once in a while where we actually pass out blankets in person at shelters. And through that journey, I got to go to like 60 cities in the US and meet with some of the best grassroots leaders that are showing up every day serving their communities. And as I started getting to know these people, they're brilliant. Like they're creating true solutions to solve some of society's biggest problems. And I saw that doing it boots on the ground and approaching issues on a local level was far more strategic and effective than trying to go a top-down strategy to solving massive problems that we're dealing with. So that's why we see billions of dollars being invested into trying to help and serve the homeless population, and the numbers are continuing to go up. It's because the local solutions are actually struggling because we're supporting the more international and national organizations. And so, and on top of that, like most
Mhm.
of the media is discussing the issues of society, they're not discussing the solutions. And so I started to be like, I want to use my platform to highlight local solutions and what's working. And so I started bringing a microphone and my a videographer with me into all my trips, and I started recording my interviews with all these people, and I felt like a journalist. But through that journey, I became convinced if we're going to see real change happen long term, that's actually sustainable, it has to be done on a local level.
Yeah.
And so I started crafting my keynote messages around that. I started writing a lot around the philosophy of localism and really wanting to figure out what is my role in helping integrate localism back into modern society. And um, I've always been a fan of communication, mass communication, and messages that are being promoted out to society that's shaping society. A lot of society's perception and the way they live is altered based off of the information that's being communicated to them. And that I'm really passionate about that because um, we can make a lot of change if we can get involved in how things are being communicated to the public. And so I started studying the local digital landscape and how information was being shared and also how communication was being done. And to my surprise, there really wasn't a lot. I hopped on the Nextdoor app.
Yeah.
I studied WhatsApp. I studied Meetup and Eventbrite. And from a local digital infrastructure, there wasn't a strong enough plan or strategy or technology that I felt like was actually going to move the needle from a massive societal standpoint. And societies live and die on communication. Like if we can't communicate and understand what is going on around us, that's a really big problem for the future of society. And so I designed out an app called Local and spelled LOCL. And I brought it to my buddy Andy Ballister, who founded GoFundMe. And he lives here in San Diego. And him and I had been friends for a couple years doing coffee together and meeting up. And he was familiar with the work I was doing with sackcloth. So we were just meeting up, catching up most of the time. And I brought this idea to him. I'm like, hey, you're the most successful tech entrepreneur I've ever met. Um, what are your thoughts on this? Like, I think I'm going to start a local social network and really try to move the needle here on local community and events and commerce being on the same platform. And he was like, "We absolutely need this, and I'll give you your first $100,000, and I'll personally advise you."